on with this topic of social influence. Out of interest, did anybody who did listen to the podcast have anything that particularly stuck out for them? Before I kind of give you sort of my takeaways, I'd be really interested in maybe what stuck for you. So head into chat if you did listen, and don't worry if you don't. Anything in particular that stuck for you from the podcast this week? We found it quite an interesting one to record, to be honest. It's a funny topic. Sometimes it feels a little bit manipulative. Once you find, the more you learn about social influence, the more you feel like, I don't know, like you're Darren Brown at work or something. You're like trying to influence people to do what you want. Steve, how easily it can be seen as Machiavellian. Or Claudia, I'm going to bring up the inverted U concept, because Sarah and I were like, why don't they just describe it as something else? I'll come on to it. The BMW experiment. So Lucy's bringing up that people's perception of influence is quite different. So like if Lucy bought a BMW, I mean, I wouldn't say this because I know Lucy and she's lovely, but I might be like, oh, Lucy's getting that BMW because she wants to be flashy about a new job and all this brilliant stuff she's got. But if I get a BMW, it's because it's very safe on the road. It's very good in icy conditions. So we sort of, make assumptions about other people, but we don't necessarily see it in ourselves. Bucky, I'm going to go through some of those tips today. Okay, so the two books that we read, I read The Techniques of Social Influence, The Psychology of Gaining Compliance. What a motivating book title that is. Also, my copy's free. So I don't, how some books end up on the internet and you're like, am I supposed to be able to access this for free? I didn't want to say it on the podcast because I didn't know whether it's meant to be for free, but you can Google it and get that book for free. It's in some open library thing. So I'm assuming it's meant to be there for free, but you can access it. My recommendation would be only dive into that if you've got 10 hours to spend and you like academic literature, because it's which, I'm just being honest with you. It's not the most there's no pictures. It's not a pacey read, but I did it for Squiggly. Sarah read Invisible Influence. And these books are kind of quite different, I would say, in their perspectives. So Sarah's book, Invisible Influence by Jonah Berger, is more about how you are influenced by the world around you and how a lot of that influence we are not aware of. And so we're kind of absorbing this stuff all the time. Whereas my book was more about how you influence people that you work with and how you can do that in a very intentional way. So I'd say two sides of the same coin, really, on influence, but hopefully we kind of bring that perspective to you in a quite a joined up way. A couple of quotes from both books that I think indicate this sort of perspective that they took. So this is from Sarah's. When it comes to our own lives, social influence is as silent as it is powerful. So getting at this sort of, it has quite a big impact on us, but often we are unaware of it because we're absorbing all these messages all the time and we're not even that conscious of it. And so I think the idea of Sarah's book is, if you can be more conscious of what's around you, then you can be more conscious of what you're choosing to sort of influence you or not. My one, as I said, a bit more on the Machiavellian scale, as Steve said. We try to manipulate the impression we make on others so that they think of us in a manner consistent with our own interests. I mean, dark, right? Basically, there's some stuff that I want and I can manipulate you to so I'm more likely to get it. And I know that sounds really, I don't know, it doesn't sound very nice, does it? But I do think we do that a lot at work. We're trying to get budgets. We're trying to get what we want out of career conversations. We're trying to get people to work on the projects that we want them to do. I think they make it sound quite dark, but I think we are doing this all the time at work in order to get the things that we need and want to get done. And I think it is about doing it with more skill. That is what I would probably say, because I think when you read too much into this, you're kind of like, oh, I never want to be like that kind of a person. So what I was going to share, well, actually, I thought I might ask you some questions first, and then I was going to share some of the ideas for actions. But I thought that while we're all here, it'd be good to get a bit of a perspective from the community on influencing stuff at the moment. So first one, and we're going to do this with stars on my screen. So new PodPlusers, I will tell you how to do this. Do you think that social influence is an absolutely essential skill that we should all be focusing on at work? I'm going to hide names just so it's anonymous. Or do you think it is a necessary evil? Okay, Helen, I get it. I'll put a bit of time into it, but this is not a skill that I really want to be known for. So stars on screen, new people. The way that you do this is you go to the top of your screen. You should see view options. Click on that. And then you should see annotate. and then stamp in a little toolbar, and then you can pick the star. I mean, you can pick a heart if you want, but I'd pick a star. I'd pick a star. So Sarah has put it in the chat as well. So essential, can you do annotate from a web client? Oh, Katie, do not worry, I will add you a star. Where can I add? I'm going to stamp and star, and this one is for Katie. There you go. No problem, Katie. Okay, so we some people are like maybe in the middle, you fence sitters do, or just can't work the stars. Either way, it's fine. But the majority of us are saying it's an essential skill. Okay, so it's a skill that we need to have, but maybe we need to develop it in a way that works for us. Maybe that's where we can get to. Okay, I'm going to get rid of your stars. I have some more questions for you. Next question, everybody. Who do you feel like you need to influence at work? I mean, you don't necessarily have to name them, but you can if you want to. But what sort of people do you feel like you have to influence at work? So for me, for example, I think I'm trying to influence people about Squiggly careers all the time. Like on social media, I'm trying to influence them to take action, to share Squiggly. That's probably my main influencing, actually, trying to get people to speak Squiggly and share Squiggly. What have we got? So Ellie says, people from the departments, Katie, stakeholders, Nicola, senior leadership team, lots of people saying peers, Amanda, the judges I appear before. Fascinating. Lorraine, my team, partners, colleagues, manager. Is that partner is in person? The partners. I thought you meant your own partner. It's probably true, right? We're probably all trying to influence our own partner all the time. Squiggly skills in working out. What else have we got? Direct reports. Amanda, I'm fascinated by the judges one. Suppliers. Yeah, I can see that one. Stakeholders, Ting says need their help to share information. Brilliant. So I mean, broad range of people that we are trying to influence, right? And I think that where I got to was that part of these influencing skills is that different people will be influenced in different ways. Like you can't, I think part of the reason why we need this skill is because we have to be able to adapt our influencing ability, because what might work with me might not work with you. And so it's this sort of awareness and adaptability that I think we need if we're going to influence effectively. One more question for you. The social influence skill scale, self-assessed by you. Where do you think you are? Are you on like, so if one is like, actually, I feel like that I am influenced very easily. I'm not aware, but I feel like I am influenced, and I'm sort of unaware of influencing skills. It's not something I've ever really thought about before. Or do you feel like you are very aware of how to influence people? You're very intentional about how you do it, and actually you think you're quite effective doing it as well. Be confident, you don't need to be modest. This is kind of anonymous. Keen to get a bit of a sense of us as a community where we might sit on this scale. It's a bit of a spread. Rima says, can we influence ourselves to become a better version of us? I think we probably can. I don't know if you can do it with the techniques that I'm going to share, but I think that surely that's where like manifesting and stuff comes in, like because you're kind of influencing yourself for a reality that you want. Maybe I don't know. I haven't read about it. I've only got thoughts, Rima. Aware but still influenced, about 5. Okay. Actually, I did have one more question. So I think we've got quite a big spread there. I'd love any people that are like 8 and 8, 9, 10, sort of 10 territory. I'd love you to share some tips, because I don't think I'm there at all. And the reason I don't think I'm aware actually is because what I'm going to do next, I'm going to clear these off. One last question for you. When you are influencing, do you think, guys, this is my own reflection, do you think you rely more on facts to influence people, like data, details, that kind of stuff, or feelings, like you convince people sort of with emotion? Last question for you. I'm intrigued by this one. Do you sort of use sort of energy, enthusiasm, those sorts of things that and if you think both, you can stick stars in both. But I just wondered, bit of both. I can see on comments. Feelings. Start with feelings, supplement with facts. I think that's very skilled, Katie. A bit of both. Katie V, a tip. I'm gonna come back to that tip actually about connection. Okay, so most of us are feeling, some of us in the middle, some of us are fact. The reason I would not put myself high on that scale is I think I'm over reliant on feelings for influence. So I think I use my energy and enthusiasm, and I think I'm maybe like a one-trick pony. And I think I would be more skilled if I could do different things with different people, with work, kind of my own reflections from this. And subconsciously, it's always feelings, isn't it? I don't know. I don't think everyone influences feelings first. I've seen some good influencers who go hard with data and facts, but I don't know. I haven't really experimented with it. I think I just have maybe one style that works a bit, but could probably get a bit better. Personal reflections. Right, let's get into some stuff that can help us to all improve and get your perspectives on it. So one of the tips that I got from my book was like, do the door. So these are called sequential techniques. And there are ways that you can influence people by, first of all, what's called the foot in the door technique. So the foot in the door, let's write it down so we've got it. And I've done a summary like last week, everyone, because you all like those summaries last week. I've done like a 1 page of all these things. But the foot in the door technique is where you kind of ask somebody an easy thing first. So like a small request first, so that they're kind of like willing to engage with you. So let's say I was trying to get a new project off the ground, and there was somebody like a senior sponsor that I really wanted to kind of like basically endorse this project for me and talk about it at a meeting so I can get the funding that I need. Foot in the door might be, oh, could I spend like 5 minutes with you just running through the project, see if you've got any builds? Like short amount of time, short request. That person's probably quite likely to say, yeah, no problem, Helen. And so once I've got a yes from that person, it's then easier for me to build on. Would hurt in the door without a shoe though. Yeah, got away your shoe, Steve. Shoes are harder to draw. The second one is the door in the face strategy. So this one, the door in the face, there was like another one as well that just got really confused me, so I didn't include it. But the door in the face is where you basically deliberately give something to say no to. So I might say to somebody, I'm looking to get investment in a side project that I want to start. Would you be willing to invest £10,000 in getting that off the ground? And they go, no. I don't know you. I don't know your project. That's not going to happen. I go, okay, completely understand it. Well, what about coming to a meeting to build on my ideas so that, you know, you could get more insight? Would you be up for that? More likely to get a yes. Apparently we feel quite guilty psychologically when we say no to stuff. So if you go with kind of like a no, like a known no to begin with, the door in the face, but then you do kind of a follow-up question, and it's much more likely that the person will say yes. Now, this is where you get into the Machiavellian stuff, because this feels like Sarah was saying, this feels really salesy, and it probably does, but I wonder if it's just thinking about how you can frame it, play with it, just to understand sometimes that put something hard in front of people in order to get an easier yes from the thing you asked for next. So what do you think? Give me a star in the middle if you think this is something that you might try. Give me a star if you're like, yeah, Helen, I can see myself giving it a go. Let's see how many stars that we get. A star on the door, one. One. I want to see which is the most popular one. Okay, couple of people. I quite like the foot in the door. Like give someone something easy, kind of build something up. The repeated yes tactic, which somebody mentioned earlier in the chat, is where you ask a series of questions that are likely to get, so people get into basically like a rhythm of saying yes, and then it just becomes a bit harder for them to say no, and you can kind of keep kind of pushing it. So I might say, would you be able to work on this project for me? Yes. Great. Would you be able to lead in that meeting on that project next week? Yes. Would you be able to actually take over that project for me because I'm going to move on to something else? Yes. Just as an example, kind of like the repeated yes apparently works as cross-examination. Okay. Yeah, it's a bit Amanda, are you a solicitor or a lawyer? I'm fascinated. Right, I'm going to clear this over. Right, on to, I'm a barrister. Interesting stuff. Second one, engage ego. So lots of this stuff on social influence, we've all got egos, and there are ways in which we can play into people's egos. So a couple of things that stuck out for me is the role of our name. And I have come across this before in research. So basically, we all love our names, fact. And they feel very familiar to us. We've had them for quite a long time. We've got an emotional attachment to our name. To the extent that, if you listen to the podcast, one of the things that stuck out for me from this book was that there are more dentists called Dennis statistically, and more people called Virginia that live in Virginia waters statistically. Like we like our names so much that we kind of gravitate to stuff that features our names. And you can use this intentionally to influence people. So for example, if I'm in a conversation with somebody, I could subtly use their name. So I might say, Petra, I can see you and your name's come a few times. So I might say, oh, Petra, what's your perspective on this? And Petra's sort of more engaged now in this conversation and feels more heard and is more influenceable by me. So sort of using someone's name, apparently, a tactic we can use to work. Reg says, actually, I feel bad now because I just said Reg. You go over. Reg says, actually, personally, it puts me off when people do the name stuff. It's so obvious. Yeah, I wonder if you could just do it once or twice, though. I don't know how many times you can do it. Now they've made a meme about Karen. I like my name less. Oh, Karen. Okay, the other thing that you can do, which is a way of engaging ego, is to spot points of connection and kind of use them, reference them. And these points of connection don't have to be like really deep. They say in the book, it can be as simple as saying like, you've got the same star sign. I mean, it's not, I mean, some people might say that's very deep, but I'm not a star sign follower, but you can apparently use them. It could be that you live in the same place. It could be that you get the same train in the morning. But if you can identify a point of connection with somebody, it can often make them kind of feel like, oh, this is somebody like me. This is somebody who knows where I'm from or what I do or what I like. And that again, we like people like us, and unfortunately, because it creates echo chambers sometimes, but it is a potential. If you can spot a point of connection, that person is more influenceable to you. So I've got one more. We use the balcony technique. Oh, Nicola, what is this? The balcony technique. Check in to see what the view is from their balcony first. Okay, kind of getting their perspective. Loads of chat going on. One more on that engage ego thing. This comes from Sarah's book, and it talks about the power of sort of personalization. I was going to get your perspective actually on different ways you thought this could be used. So the point here is when you give people the opportunity to personalize, they are more influenceable, because again, if we personalize it, it sort of plays to our ego, like we put a bit of ourselves into that project. And so I was trying to think practically about what are some things you could put up for personalization at work so that you could sort of put this stuff into practice. I thought about projects, like if you are working on a project at the moment and there's someone that you might want to influence, like giving them the opportunity to personalize the project. So that could be scope, like helping someone to think, well, what do you think should be in and out of scope? Might be a way that they could feel that they've sort of personalized that a bit. Or even like, who should we be involving? Who do you think we should be involving? Like just sort of giving them the opportunity to personalize it. Even naming the project. I have seen that done before. Giving someone the power to name the project, they are way more invested in it. Maybe that combines the name thing with the personalization. I don't know, but it definitely plays into the ego effect. The other one that I thought was maybe like someone's job itself. I've seen some fascinating research on job crafting. So if you give someone the power to personalize their job, i.e. to do a bit of job crafting, how much more engaged in it they are. That could be like responsibilities. Okay, so I know this is your job description, but what do you think you should be doing in a day? Like that's one way you could do it. It could be their job title. Like if you've got the freedom and flexibility to let people personalize their job titles, a massive way of kind of influencing people. Or ways of working. Like what would working in a way that works for you look like? So I think these, to me, I think this feels nicer. Like, like it's definitely engaging ego, but I feel like this personalization thing works for the individual as well as you. Whereas some of those other things, I feel like I'm not really sure how that's benefiting the person I'm trying to influence, but I feel like this might be more of a win-win-win approach. Any thoughts? On the topic of personalization, I love the fact that Amazing Influence you choose your job title. Yeah, you can. It's fine. Sarah and Lucy, they're up for grabs if you want to change them. Sarah and Lucy for the team are here now. It's sort of what's important to you, and everyone places different meanings on job titles, don't they? I think it feels more comfortable than others too. Feel that this is also building relationships rather than just being used as a tool to influence. Yeah, this is probably the one that I I could imagine myself using more on a day-to-day basis. Some of the other ones I think feel more tactical. Not to say that I wouldn't use them, but I think I would have to be very intentional about experimenting with them. But this one feels just a bit more like something I would naturally do. Onyeka. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. I didn't even think about that. So Onyeka has got one of our books. So You Coach You, but we did these personalized copies. You like Onyeka, Coach Onyeka. Please don't ask us to do them again. It was an absolute nightmare. I'll just be really honest. It was an absolute nightmare for about 3 months of my life. However, if you've got one, brilliant. But that's a really interesting thing. So we played into somebody's name, and maybe that influenced them to sort of probably influence people to buy the book. And hopefully, more importantly, influence people to do something with a book. I hadn't thought about that. Look, we were doing it without knowing. It's a good example. Thanks, Onyeka. Also, follow Onyeka on Instagram, everyone, because Onyeka shares like the best summaries of PodPlus. Brilliant, I love it. The other idea that I got from the book that I was reading was like activating imagination, which this is another one that I could imagine myself using actually. So if you want to influence somebody, and the reason I put Wibber at the top is that's our wouldn't it be amazing if is a really good unlocking question. So if you're trying to influence somebody at work, getting them to sort of imagine the outcome that you are trying to get to is a good way for them to sort of engage with it. So let's say I'm trying to influence you to buy our next book, for example, and this is not, I'm not really trying to do this, everyone. I'm just giving you an example that I thought we could understand. So the book is not written yet. But I'm trying to influence you. I might say to you, wouldn't it be amazing if you could be confident and prepared for every career conversation you're going to have? What would that feel like? And so I'm now getting you to think about this scenario in your mind so that when I then present the solution, you are more likely to be interested in it. So I've just given you one kind of example there to kind of illustrate it, but I quite like wouldn't it be amazing if, what would it feel like if, what would a future look like when, like those sort of questions that take people to that sort of imagining space is a really good way to kind of engage them in the outcome that you're looking for. And then the last one is this inverted U. Sarah and I were like, why don't they just call it like a mountain or something like that? This is the inverted U. Let me explain what it means. So know where you are and know where someone else is too. The idea here is that when something feels very new and scary and different, people might be a bit resistant to being influenced. So because they've never done it before and they're like, I'm not really sure about this. So if it's too new, it can be hard to influence people. But if it is too familiar, people might be like, I've done it before, I don't want to do it again. Like it just feels a bit boring, a bit samey. So the social influence sweet spot is where it feels a little bit new and a little bit familiar. So let's say you are trying to launch something that's absolutely brand new, never been done before. Find the familiar. Think about, okay, maybe this project, they could do this brand new thing they've never done before, but the team, they know. Or maybe it's a skill that they're really competent in. And so if you can find the familiar, trying to get something new in, find the familiar, you are more likely to influence that person. It's the sort of the social influence sweet spot. That's like my random language, not what it says in the book. But that's basically what this kind of inverted U is, get to the bit at the top. So we are at the end of time now. I appreciate this is quite a busy picture that I put in front of you. But last week you said you liked these kind of summaries. So I've tried to put all the different ideas for action onto one page so that you've got them to kind of take away and play with. We've also got the pod sheet, which summarizes this in a bit more detail. So it kind of has some of like the ideas with a little bit more context on it. And you can always get that from our website. How do you use emojis to like comments here? I don't think you can, or maybe you can, maybe, I don't know, maybe right. I don't know, actually, Claudia. I can't see how. Sorry, maybe someone else can solve that for you. I don't know how you do the emojis, but I hope that's been helpful. William, I hope you might come back and everybody else that is new as well. Next week, our episode is on stress tolerance. It's quite a deep one, actually. So we talk about how you, the book that I read is called Widen the Window. So how you widen your window for stress at work. And so we kind of explore all the theory about stress and its impact on us. And then we give you some ideas for action so that you can sort of manage it more in sort of practical ways at work. So hopefully, I'm glad, Will, I'm glad. Hopefully we will see you again very soon in the next session, and please do share, rate, review, subscribe, all things Squiggly, so we can help more people. Always really helpful for us. Bye everybody, see you again soon. Take care for now. Bye everyone. Take care.